Hi everyone, I am Meenakshi Gupta. I'm a dynamic consultant at Redspire, Glasgow, United Kingdom. And today I'm going to talk about my topic, which is URS, Universal Resource Scheduling. And I currently work with Redspire. So this is the topic for today we're going to talk about. So this is little about me. I worked with Accenture of NAT India, Microsoft India, and Business and Decision in Belgium, and currently with Redspire, having overall 6+ years of experience with a couple of certifications which I did. So let's go and see what we are gonna talk about today. The agenda for today is URS overview, what exactly the URS is and how does the licensing works for the URS. Entities and data configuration, this is the major part which is going to come into picture when we talk about out-of-the-box URS. Schedule a service activity entity, which is going to be an out-of-the-box entity for scheduling purpose. Schedule a custom entity, which is for the custom entity, how to schedule a custom entity, etc., which we'll see in the later slides. URS out-of-the-box capabilities demo based on use case. So this is mainly I'm going to cover based on the demo use case, and next topic is going to be schedule board customizations. We will see how we can customize the schedule board. Different URS versions, which comes with different kind of first-party apps of Dynamics, and then we will see in the end the Q&A. So let's go. So the first slide is about URS overview, which is Universal Resource Scheduling. Universal Resource Scheduling is basically an engine which helps us to schedule the resources based on the location, time, and some category and the characteristics of the resources. And there are a couple of entities which defines how the resources are being characterized and what kind of characteristics that they have. So URS is something which looks like this, resource scheduling. So resource scheduling is nothing but the URS. So let's see how the licensing works here. So as I said, URS is not something which is especially any first-party apps for Dynamics 365. Rather, it comes with field service, project service, or the customer service. So if any of the business who is already using the customer service or field service or the project service, any of these first-party apps, they are going to get URS and free, and they can utilize all the power of URS. Actually the power, because there are lots of just the data configuration using which you can do many things. You can schedule resources, you can schedule different kind of resources in just few clicks. So let's see how to do it. So one assumption that I'm considering here as the audience is having a basic understanding how to make customization in Power Apps or the Dynamics 365. Because I'm not gonna explain everything, how to create entity, etc., but I just jump to the basic demo and show the capabilities of URS. So these are the basic entity relationships, which are very important, because in URS, entity relations and things are not that easy. Sometimes it confuses the people. So it's about there's gonna be one entity, let's say the out of the box entity, or it can be a custom entity which is being enabled for the scheduling purpose. And here we have two relations. So 1:1 relation with bookable resource bookings and resource requirements. So when you create an entity, we need to create these two relations, and without these two relations, the entity will not be used for the scheduling purpose. And there is 1:1 relation. When you say bookable resource, there can be a kind of resource which is being booked. So there's a relation because one resource can have multiple bookings. And this will be more clearly clarified when I'm explaining via the demo. So let's see, just have a basic understanding of the naming convention, and then when I show you the demo, and I think it will be more clear. So bookable resource is having a 1:1 relation with bookable resource category. So let's say there are resource of type technician who can be of various types. So they can be categorized as, let's say, field technicians, or they can be for plumbing fixes, or can be for electrical fixes, etc. So these are the relations which we have when we talk about basic scheduling and the booking purpose. So let's see the entities in deep. I have a couple of slides for entities to explain them in a better way, and then jump to the demo to show how I have set up the entities in my system. So here, I have categorized them in two parts. So let's say there are a couple of entities which comes as part of URS, but I have categorized them into two parts. Let's say static master data URS entity. What does that mean is there should be some master data present in your system to schedule any other entity based on the static data present. So let's say a couple of entities I have categorized as static master data. For them, master data needs to be present in order to see the visibility of the resources to be scheduled. So resource category is one of the entity, which is also called as role. Resource characteristics is one entity, which is called as skill. Proficiency model. So if let's say there's a category of a doctor who has a characteristic as he works as a dentist. Proficiency model, we can define, it's not mandatory, but it's optional. Like if we have some online reviews for particular doctors, we can definitely give them the proficiency model based on some ratings. So we have org units. Let's say our company which works in multiple cities, which has multiple buildings, we can categorize them into organization units. Bookable resources which are gonna be scheduled. Booking statuses, we can have our own custom status, and out of the box status are also present, which comes with the URS. Preferences, let's say some customer have the preferences for particular resources to be booked, so we can do that as well. This is again not mandatory but can be used. Services is the main thing which I consider in my demo, because service is something which is already present in the system for the business purpose. Let's say my business does 3 kinds of services, so I have different services categorized based on resource category, characteristics, and resources. So we will see that in the demo. Requirement groups and requirement templates. This I will also explain when I'm going to explain the service via the demo. Dynamic URS entities are service activity, custom entity. In my scenario, I'm going to use the service activity entity and the custom entity as well. Resource requirements. Requirements are always created based on the service used when we are creating the service activity or the custom entity record. Bookable resource bookings, definitely when the requirement is there for the service activity and when we make the booking, then the record for the bookable service bookings entity is created. And definitely this is not the complete list. We have many other static master data URS entities, and we have many more dynamic data URS entities as well. So URS entities master data configuration, this is something which I consider to explain in a better way. So let's say how to actually configure the master data for entities. Let's see the order for them. So first is the resource category. What I think is resource category is something if we categorize, let's say there's a business. I am taking an example of a hospital. So I'm going to explain whole my scenario considering a hospital services. So there can be a multiple category of resources. There can be a doctor who is going to be scheduled definitely, and the rooms, if the hospital has multiple branches, then going to be have multiple categories. So we have buildings, we have rooms, we have doctors, we have compounders, we're going to have an ambulance, whatnot. So there can be multiple resource categories to be scheduled. So this is the first entity for which I generally create the master data. And next is the resource characteristics. Let's say there is a resource category of doctor who can have multiple characteristics. So define the characteristics for each category. Each category can contain 1 or more characteristics. So next one I define as org units. So org units, again, if my hospital has multiple branches within a city or outside the city, then I have the org units to say that, okay, my hospital is there in Glasgow. It's also have a branches in Edinburgh. So that's how I define based on the organization unit. Next one is proficiency model. As I said, it's not mandatory, but if you want to define, if you have various kinds of resources and the count is too high, it's always good to define their proficiency model to be selected at the first place. So this is optional, but yes, I'm using it. and then how all the combinations of resource category, characteristics, org units, and proficiency model, I finally define my resources. Because one resource is always associated to a category, and category associated to a characteristic, and my resource also associated to the org units. And that's how one resource, bookable resource record is being created. So if you follow the order, it becomes really easy to create the resource in the system. And if you have a particular scenario, it becomes much more easier to define the resources and their characteristics. Next one, so resources are there, but resources can be booked based on some service. So the service is something which contains the resource groups, requirement groups, and the requirement group templates. So when we create a service, automatically resource requirement group is being created. And when the resource requirement group is being created, we have a requirement templates there. So any entity which is using the service to be scheduled, and based on the service, automatically, based on the defined requirement templates, the requirements are being created. So let's see in the demo how it's gonna work. Next, this is about schedule a service activity entity. So I'll explain that how I'm using service activity entity for my scheduling purpose. And there are a couple of things which I have noticed about service activity entity is like, for example, if you want to have some rules to enable disable fields or the basic rule for service activity entity, business rules cannot be created from the classic UI, so you have to use the new UI for that. It's not available from the classic one. And recurring service activity is not possible. You need to create individual service activities. So this is little about service activity entity, and I'll definitely show you how I use that in my system. And next is the custom entity. So I'm also going to show you how I'm going to use the custom entity for the scheduling purpose, how the mapping works, how to set up the metadata for the custom entity. And yeah, this is about if you have your custom entity, definitely you need to enable the scheduling for the custom entity, and how to enable the scheduling for any entity, how to set up the metadata, and what's the metadata, how does it work, we will see that. So this is basically when you are scheduling a custom entity, there are a couple of relationships which we need to create, and what parameters we need to consider, we will see that. Quick bookings in URS, and I'll also show you how to make the basic booking that we generally do by the scheduling, but there is also a new feature in URS which has come up recently. It's about the quick booking in emergency cases. Since I'm considering the whole scenario around the hospital, so in case of emergencies, we need to quick book. We need to quick book the doctors. We need to quick book the ambulance, etc. and whatnot. There can be many things which needs to be quick booked, and we do have that feature available in URS. So we will see that how I achieved it. So why I consider the hospital scenario here is that because I see that there are many resources. Let's say there are a couple of equipments in case of COVID, which is going on nowadays, COVID situation. Definitely, if someone calls and say that we need a COVID appointment, definitely hospital has to have the COVID kits available, testing kits. Hospital has to have a room available for the testing purpose, has to have a doctor as well. So that's how there are a couple of resources which we can utilize to basically see how URS is being used here. It's not any unique scenario, but just the scenario who everybody understands well. So let's say there are doctors who can be booked, there are buildings, there are rooms, there are equipments, there are ambulance, there are vehicles, there are many things which needs to be booked. And there can be waiting rooms, there can be proper blood test rooms and reception, admin, whatnot. So let's see what is the flow which I'm going to use to explain everything, the technical things which I talked about a lot just now as a theory, but I'm definitely going to show you the whole practical. So use case flow which I have used, let's say there's a Royal Hospital Central system which has multiple branches within a city and across the cities. Here the data that I have set up is mainly for Glasgow and Edinburgh. So how the flow works and what flow I try to achieve is, patient is calling. So let's say patient calls and the call goes to the Royal Hospital Central System admin. what the admin person is gonna do is gonna search whether it's a new patient or it's a registered patient. If it's a new patient, definitely gonna create a new record in the system to maintain the history. And if it's the existing patient, it's directly gonna create one service activity, which is called hospital service activity, and it is actually renamed from the service activity entity. So once the service activity is created, what happens next? Patient calls and says that I want a service for, let's say, I have a COVID-19 symptoms. So basically, when RHCS admin is going to create hospital service activity, is going to use the particular service which is defined as a master data. Once I select that particular service, related to that service, whatever kind of requirements are defined in the master data is going to be created. And when the person, so what happens when admin goes and checks the availability by just clicking on the book button and sees that what all rooms, doctors, equipments are available, and just confirm to the patient, okay, so I have appointments available at today 10 a.m. Are you okay with that? And if patient confirms, he makes the booking. And then what happens in case a patient says that, no, this doesn't suits me, and in case if already booking is made, then admin has a facility to cancel the booking or to reschedule the booking based on what patient is confirming. So let's see how I have set up that in the system. So I'll show you that via demo. I'll share my system and see that. So I have an app which is Royal Hospital Central System. This is nothing but a resource scheduling model driven app which I have renamed as my system, and I'm a RHCS admin here. So I'll show you the whole flow. Before that, I would definitely like to show you how the data setup which I have done. So as I told, first data that I've created is for resource category. As per my flow, what I need for the resource category is doctor, equipments, rooms, vehicle, and the building or the center. If I have multiple branches and I want to categorize them into different buildings or something like that, so I have the resource categories here. So when you create a resource category, when you open, and I'll just open and show you how does it look. So there's a doctor, and I have some skills for the doctor that I'll show you from the different entities as well. So this is the resource category record when you create. And how do you create the characteristics for the categories? Let's say I have various characteristics. Right now they are not related, they are individual records. And when I actually create a resources, let's say I have a Dr. Bailey. When you create a research record, you have a couple of things to associate with to define this particular resource for something. This doctor is available in Glasgow or Edinburgh. So I have two org units as well. Sorry, before jumping to the resource, I'll just show you two entities as well, which I have set up. So org units, I have two, Edinburgh and the Glasgow. And let's see how resource category, characteristics, proficiency models, and org units are being linked to the resources. So let's say I have a resource of types. So I have a resource of type doctor. So let's filter them and see how I have categorized them. So let's say I have user. Since I have very limited users in my trial instance, so I have just few doctors defined, but definitely in the real-time scenario, we can have multiple, as many we need. So let's say Dr. Billy, and Dr. Billy is working in this time zone, and he is a type of resource as user, because there are different types of resources which we can have. Scheduling, what information we have here. So org units is the Glasgow, so it means that this doctor works in the Glasgow. And if we see that the characteristics of the doctor, so why I have multiple characteristics just now, because I don't have many users to set up for the doctor, so I just gave multiple characteristics for one doctor. So Billy can work as compounder, can work as dentist, and have a characteristic as general physician as well. And here rating I have given. So as a compounder, he is proficient. General physician, he is good, but I don't have any rating as dentist for the moment. And for each resource, I can have work hours available. So for now, it's just given as 24 hours he's working, but definitely we can define work hours. He's working the day shift, other doctor is working the night shift. So we can define the work hours, and based on the working hours given for the resource will be shown while making the booking. What all things I have. So if I show you the categories, so definitely this bookable resource is of type doctor category. And that's how one resource is created. And all the linkings matters a lot here. When you make a booking, you want to actually have the particular kinds of resources to be booked based on your criteria, then the linking is very much important here. And if I show you another type of resource, so I have a couple of doctors who have different characteristics. And if I show you another type of, let's say there is in the Glasgow, there is one building called Gorwals, which has multiple rooms for the doctors. And definitely there can be rooms in the hospital for different purposes. One room just to take the blood samples, one room for some operation theater, one room is for the general consultation. So I have a couple of rooms defined, whereas the resource type is given as facility. So let's open one and see what is the difference between bookable resource of type user and facility. So scheduling, again, this room is available in the Glasgow building, and especially the rooms that I have is Gorwals NHS room 1. And I say that this room can be used for dentist purpose, can be used for blood sample test, can be used for general consultation. Again, I don't have like very much data into the system just now to show that this room is for blood test, another room is for something else. So I just added multiple characteristics for a single room. Working hours, definitely few rooms we can keep closed for some cleaning purposes. But just now it's actually available all the time, 24/7. And category is gonna be here rooms as we defined here. So this is the difference between resource of type user and resource of type rooms. So we have seen how the resource is being set up here. Let's see one more important thing is services. This is again the out-of-the-box entity called services, which comes as part of URS, but I have just renamed it as hospital services. Resource category also called as roles. Resource characteristics also called as skills. So let's see services, what all services my hospital provides. So my hospital provides basic ambulance booking and blood test appointment and all the services which I created for Glasgow. And we can also create as we have another org unit for Edinburgh. So I have limited data to show it in a better way. So let's open one service. So let's open blood test appointment. So when you create a service, automatically resource requirement group is created. And this is one of the best thing in URS, because what happens when you have the group here, and these are the requirement templates. So whenever, let's say, service activity record is using the service, automatically using this group and the requirement templates, resource requirement record will be created. And when you make the booking, they will filter based on this and show you all the available resources which fulfills your requirement. So let's say this service is for blood test appointment, and my hospital provides definitely for blood test, we need at least a room where the patient is gonna come, and we need a compounder or any doctor. So here I have duration is 30 minutes. So whenever we'll search using the service, it's gonna show me all the resources in the interval of 30. And org unit, it's for Glasgow, and resource categories. So one requirement template is for rooms, one is for doctor, and the characteristic that I've selected for blood sample test and the compounder. So here the linking and the data is being created. Everything is gonna come into picture. So how the master data is set up in URS, that's how you're finally booking the scheduling gonna work. So let's say another service, let's say COVID-19 Glasgow. So whenever any patient calls for the COVID-19 test, I'm gonna, as an admin, I'm gonna use this service. I'm gonna provide this service to my patient. So what kind of resource requirement will be required there? I have 3. Doctor requirement, test kit requirement, and the room requirement. And I have again defined all the filters here. I want in Glasgow, and categories is gonna be this. For test kit, it's the equipment, and for the characteristics, compounder is okay. I don't need any special doctor. I need a COVID-19 test kit, and I need blood sample test room. So this is how we can define the services as per the need. But in my scenario, I am using all these services. So this is the basic master data which I have in the system. I have a couple of things as well, booking statuses. So booking statuses, let's say patient has arrived, we can mark it as patient has arrived. If we want to cancel the appointment, we can say that, yeah, patient didn't come, or doctor wants to cancel the appointment. We have a couple of statuses. We can have our own custom status, which I have given as custom booking status, and I'll show you how this works. And apart from this, I think that's all. Requirement groups will always be created when we create a service. So this I have not created this, always created automatically once the service is created. So this is all about data, and let's say what I have in the sitemap, just to show you how I'm gonna start with the flow which I have just told. So this is about my Royal Hospital Central system, and the admin is gonna sit here and accessing this app via even the mobile or the web. It's completely fine. So let's say let's start the flow. So let's say patient calls, and admin receives the call and just asks for the few details and such. So for the patient, I'm considering two views here: Glasgow patients or the Edinburgh patients. So let's say, let's consider this whole scenario for Glasgow. Let's say someone calls and just tells his email ID, phone number, whatever the columns are given here, admin is able to search with these columns, because just now I have just 6 records. There can be any number of records. So search, let's say I get the call and he says that I'm Gupta. And when I say Gupta, there are actually 3 records. Now I say, okay, could you tell me some more details about it? And if the person says that I have, my name is May, and I can just make a search and find the record. In case if the patient is calling and I don't have enough information to search a particular record, or I'm not able to match the details with the patient, just I go ahead and create a new patient in the system. So let's go ahead and just create a new record. Let's say Mark has called and he shared my surname is Gupta. That's why I could search a couple of results, but now I don't see Mark here. And if I just say Mark @Gupta, mark.gupta@gmail.com, and let's say birthday is 12/12/1990, Venezuela. Okay. And let's say this new patient is a new patient. So definitely, I'm not sure whether the patient can have preference for particular doctor or cannot have. So if you say that he has a preference for particular doctor, then you can select the preferred doctor. Let's say he does not have any preference. He's just new to Glasgow. He's just booking for the general consultation, and he's in Glasgow. So let's say he's in Glasgow or Gunnet. And city, let me just give us Glasgow and just save the record. So now when the patient calls, I confirm. If the patient is not present, I created a new record for the patient. Now patient says that I want to go for a general consultation. My health is not looking quite good. So I go ahead as an admin and creates a hospital service activity for the patient. I say that, let's say he wants a general consultation service. As an admin, I know for my hospital which service I'm gonna use for the patient. So he wants general physician appointment at Glasgow. Let's say start time is, he wants it today. He wants somewhere in the after the working hours. He wants, let's say, at 6 p.m. So let's book his 6 to 8 p.m. Let's search within the 2 hours of range. And let's say he called me or emailed me. I'm not sure. If he called me, I'll just mark it as a call. So just to capture whether patient has reached the hospital via phone call, email, chat, or messages. So I'm just gonna save this record. What happens in the backend? Because since I used this service and this particular service has some requirement templates, so automatically if I see in the related requirements will be created here for the room requirement and for the doctor requirement. So if I go and show you just once again, so see the hospital service for the general physician. If you see this, there are requirement templates which we defined as part of service for the doctor and for the room, and the category is for doctor and rooms, characteristic for general physician and general consultation. So let's go ahead. Now we have two requirements automatically created here. When we click on book button, it shows the window of schedule assistant. What a schedule assistant is, it basically assists resources based on the filter criteria given in the requirements. So this basically we want it for today. Let's say we have given time there, but somehow I have not linked the fields of the entity to the requirement here. So that's why I need to enter the time here again. I can definitely do the attribute mappings, so that I'll show you how to do the attribute mapping in the end. So let's see, I want today for 6 to 8 p.m. search here, and let's click on search. Okay, and one more thing is, so this is your filter view. This is customizable. This is your view where you see all the available resources, and you have couple of columns here, if you see, and all these columns are customizable. So if you click here and if you see the columns, you have various other columns as well available. You can select them and you can use as well. So for example, I don't want to use travel time. I just click that and I say that you won't see the travel time here now. And if you check that, you will be able to see. And there are hourly views. There are, let me just come out of this. So there are a couple of views which are available. Let's say there are hourly view, there is weekly view, there is a days view, and you can change that view and see the resources in a different ways. And there's a setting also available for schedule assistant, which I'll explain you little later to how to. This is all self-explanatory. For example, if the available resources are more than 30, I want to see at a time 30. So this is given as resource per stage as 30. Working time, how to show the resources from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m., just all 24 hours, and hide entity color, hide cancel. So whenever the appointment is canceled, don't show those bookings, etc. So this is how we can just customize per user basis directly from the setting window. So let's say, let's book Dr. Billy 11 to, okay, we are booking 6:30 to 7:30. So here one more thing which I wanted to show is, let's say here all the resources, if you see that it's available room and the doctor. If my service would have just one requirement, it would have shown just one resource, but this is showing in a group, which is actually can be used in the service activity entity. When we use the custom entity, the resource requirement creation doesn't happen in a group. So grouping works only with the service activity for now, not the custom entities. So let's see, you have 3 availabilities and few more things which I want to just explain. So you see all the kinds of availabilities and the difference of 30 minutes, which is because of this is being set. You can change this to, let's say, I want it 25 minutes. And resource per interval. So if you see that only one combination of resources is being shown. If I say let me show 2, if there is another doctor who is available for the general consultation and the room as well. So if I say search, I see other combination as well, because I say results per interval show me please at least 2. So let's say I book Dr. Billy from 6 to 7 p.m. and booking status is going to be reserved. That's all. Distance, travel time, we are not considering because this is not something about any technician who is working in the field, etc. So this is, let's just book and see how does it look. So when you click on booking in the tabs in the hospital service activity, you will see the bookings are created. For Dr. Billy and this room. So this doesn't matter actually for the patient, rather for the admin center to see what all booked. Admin has a visibility across the buildings, across the rooms, and across the doctors who is booked when. So let's say this booking is made for this patient. Doctor is booked Billy in Glasgow this time and everything. So if we see the same thing on the schedule board, let's see how it looks. So this is what the schedule board is, and schedule board is nothing but one-page application where admin can see everything. Schedule assistant is something which assists based on the requirement created for the scheduled entity. This is something where you see everything. This is again the same kind of filter which we had in assistant, and this can also be customizable. So you see the options you can have, you can select the resources if you want to show particular resources here. And if you want to put some default values, let's say you want to put org units as Glasgow. Let's say you want to put here as Glasgow, and you want to actually make that as default view by just whenever this loads, this value should be auto-populated. You can do that as well. So these are the kind of options that you can do, and this filter layout can also be customized just by customizing the XML. So let's first complete the scenario, and we will see later how to customize the schedule board. So let's see the resource. We know that we have booked Billy, how the booking logs here. So I'm just gonna minimize this, and if I show that, so you see that I think I booked it for today evening. Yes, so this is the one. No, he booked for 6 p.m. It's for patient Mark Gupta. That's right. So if you see that we have made a booking, and here admin can check, or this can be used by doctors as well, definitely, to see what kind of bookings that they have. We can have specific views for particular doctors. We can share just with users the particular views, not with everyone. So this one is the public one. If you see that, if I show you where the settings, you can customize everything here. This one is shared with everyone. You can share it with particular users. We will see how to do basic customizations in this schedule board as well. So if you see that the patient, Mayank Gupta, is booked, is scheduled, and doctor is booked, and along with the doctor, there is definitely a room is also booked. There are a couple of things which we can do. So if you see that, if you hover over, you see a couple of details. Let's say resource requirement is the doctor, start time, and time. We can have many more fields here. And this all just is customizable via a view in the bookable resource booking entity. So you can have multiple fields in the view. All will be visible here if the field contains data. And this box is called a booking box, and this box is also customizable. And this box is actually customizable via just if you go to the settings, and I have just, if you go to the open default settings, come down, and if you see the schedule types, you can select your entity for which we want to have this view. So this is the data which comes from here. So if I show you how this works is, so I have just the relationships and I'm showing this data. So this is the relationship from booking to service appointment, which is the service activity, and then service activity to contact, which is my patient, and the full name. So this is how you can just update this XML to show whatever kind of data you require in the box. So this is how schedule board is all customizable just by changing some views and the XML. So by customizing views, you can customize almost everything in the schedule board and XML as well. So let's go ahead and see that. Book the resource again. So if I go ahead and see the Mayank Gupta, which is booked for, I think, today 6 p.m. I think I can, oh yeah, here's the one, Mark Gupta. And if you right click, so you have the facility of utilizing all these options. For instance, there are a couple of statuses. These are the booking statuses which are available. So let's say if the patient hasn't arrived and doctor says it's still in the pending, you can mark it as pending. Once you mark, there are different colors which you can definitely choose as per your need. And you can, this is all customizable just via record configuration. If you open the booking status records, you have the color combination facility which you can give. Let's say he was in pending, and let's say he came and say in progress. Let's say operation is going on for the patient, and let's say he's in progress, and you see the color has changed. So based on the colors, when there are multiple bookings, multiple doctors, multiple patients, it becomes really, really easy to see how many bookings, how many are in progress, how many cancelled, how many wants to be rescheduled, and whatnot. So if we see another status, let's say in progress, and or we want to say patient has arrived, we can see that patient has arrived and the color changes again. So there are a couple of other status as well. Let's say my booking is completed. Let's say patient has come and everything is done. So whenever we change status here, if you go to your service activity, which we created just now, let's go to the mark. So if I open mark, so if I open the service appointment and I see what's the status is being changed on the booking. So definitely everything is being changed. As we were changing there to pending, arrived and everything, this is also linked here. So here also can be seen on the activity what's happening with actually the booking. So if you see that arrived, and sometimes if you want to cancel the status, you can. And this is the custom booking status, which actually doesn't work with the groups, with the resource requirement groups, but it definitely works with the single requirement creation. So if we say no, so if the patient didn't come, we can say that he doesn't come up, so we can say no show. There are a couple of status. Let's say cancel, since we cannot mark as cancel because the meeting is already completed or doctor has already met the patient. This is how a couple of status works. And this is about, you know, when we are using the service activity, we are just creating the patient record existing or using the existing patient, creating the hospital service activity for the patient, making the booking as per the need of the patient. Now let's see if we want to use this custom entity. So I have created one custom entity called quick service activity. This is my custom entity, which I am also using for scheduling purpose. As the name suggests, I'm going to use it for quick bookings. So how the entity is enabled for scheduling and how does it actually work? How does the book button comes on the entity? So let's see that. Let's see the settings. How does the configuration works? So to make any entity available for the scheduling purpose, go to the scheduling settings and then go to the admin. Click on the scheduling entity setting, and here you will see a couple of entities are present. As I already enabled my entity for booking, but you have, if you want to enable any other out of the box entity or the custom entity for booking purpose or for scheduling purpose, you need to add the entity here. It can be any type of entity, custom or out of the box. These are the relations which needs to be created, which are mandatory to be created for entity to be enabled for scheduling purpose. But I won't suggest to use relationship creation from this window. What happens when you create the relationship from this window? It goes to the default solution, means new underscore prefix. So always go to your solution, which prefix you want to use, and then create one-to-many relationship from your custom entity or out of the box entity to the bookable resource booking entity and the resource requirement entity. So let's say I have set up this entity for scheduling purpose. Once you add the entity, you add the relations which you created from your solution, click on publish customization. Once the customizations is published, you will see your entity will appear here. This just adding the entity here, creating the relation doesn't make the scheduling purpose successful. So once you click on this, you need to actually set up a couple of metadata here. So if I show you once your entity is enabled for scheduling, what kind of metadata you can set up. So there are three sections. If you see, first one is about the relationships, which we have just created. Second section is kind of self-explanatory for some default values. But there are a couple things to be considered. Let's say cancel bookings when moving. This is for example, there are already bookings in place and we are moving. to another resource. Let's say one doctor we have booked for a particular patient, and doctor is not available today. We want to move the booking from one resource to another. At that moment, do you want to cancel the book? Do you want to actually cancel the booking from existing doctor and move it to another, or you don't want to cancel and just move it to another? So generally we keep it as no. And these are all the default statuses, which are all self-explanatory. And this is the main thing which I want to cover as part of custom entity, just show you the different ways of booking. So this is enable quick book. So for quick booking purpose, if you enable this, you will see a little different behavior, how which enables us to quick book in case of emergencies in my scenario of hospital. And these are the attribute mapping. So let's say in the custom entity you have a start date, you want to map it to the requirement record and to date, and this is always enabled only for the same data type, which definitely makes a sense. So this is about the metadata and how to enable the entity for the scheduling purpose. So let's see how I use my quick service activity entity for the booking. So if I go to the patient records again and show you a little different behavior for booking purpose. So let's say I have let's say Urs Smith. I already know that this is a patient who is calling and he has a couple of information, and I go ahead, don't create the whole service activity because he says no, it's emergency and we need a booking, and say that quick service activity, just say set test and save it. Don't do anything, and everything data is auto populated via the out of the box workflow which I have. I'll just show you how it works. And if you book now, so in the earlier one, when I was booking the service activity, when I was using the service and not the quick book option for scheduling entity, and I was seeing the whole schedule assistant window where I had multiple resources. For the quick book, you just select the time, select the date, and you know for emergency what kind of resources you have in the systems. Let's say Glasgow emergency A, I want to book today for 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and let's say I say book, and this is just how it just booked. So this is about the quick booking, and this is our latest feature in the URS which has been released recently. So this is book, this is the date, time, and this, and I say exit. What happens here also in the backend requirements is created, even though I didn't use any kind of service here. So requirement is created based on what booking I've made. And if you see the booking, it is the same way as we have seen in the service activity entity. And if you would like to see the same thing in the schedule board, we can see definitely. So let's say I booked, I think Glasgow emergency. I am searching wrong. So let's say Glasgow, and I booked, I think this one. So for Urs Smith, this is the one for 5 p.m. This box is again the customizable as the service activity. Go ahead and update the XML for this. And there are a couple of things which is possible in this, but it's not possible when you use the service in the service activity entity, because there we have a group of requirements to be booked together. This is a single requirement. So if you click on this, other status are exactly same as what we have seen for the service activity. For the custom entity, if you see that I have my custom booking status, which I have created, this also works in this case, but it doesn't work in case of the when you have the requirements created in a group. And there are a couple of things here. So you have even the facility. Suppose you have the requirements I had. So suppose this one you want to move it to here, you can definitely drag and drop, and then you can use this facility to quickly book another. In case you booked in urgently, you booked one emergency service, but it's not available, you just drag and drop and book other. This is also possible. And this view, if you see down, this is just all related to the requirement entity views. This can also be customized. For example, you see a couple of views here, you really don't want them, you can definitely go ahead then remove it. Just go to the settings here. So schedule board is fully customizable, as I already said. If you go to the requirement panels, you have a couple of views here. Let's say this is showing the 3 views, but I see they're like, for example, I want to go to the default settings because I want to just see few Let's say I don't want to see this one. Just click on minus and just remove it and just apply. So you were seeing a couple of views here. I just want to say 2 views. As per my need, you can have more views created in the resource requirement entity and just add there by clicking on plus icon, and your view is gonna appear here. And there is one more thing. So when you have service activity, definitely, because I have it for, let's say, my hospital service activity, which are unscheduled, and you want to schedule from here, you can, but you can't just drag and drop, which is not available. So if you see that, you just click on find availability for this particular service. And suppose you see these availability, and let's say go ahead and book, let's say this one, I want to book, just click on book. You can do bookings in this way as well. So there are a couple of things which are there in the schedule board which can be used widely. Let's say if you have any open emergency activities, I do, I don't. If you have any open emergency activities, just search again, find availability, and you can book even this single activity, single resource requirement. If you have, you can book, make the booking for that, or you can make booking for the requirement groups as well here. So this is how the booking works for custom entity, for out of the box entity. Schedule board is customizable, and there are a couple of views. So this is, again, if you see that in the filter, is all customizable. There are a couple of views available here. Horizontal view, which we are seeing just now. Vertical view, if you see that, how it looks. So this is how each resource is, and you will see the vertical view here. And we have list view as well available. Let me just click on exit search because it's still searching based on the search that I clicked on find availability for particular activity. So yeah, this is that view, and generally used view is the horizontal view. Now, so this is how in the schedule board, booked resources can be cancelled, can be rescheduled, can be assigned to someone else, it can be rebooked as well. So let's say one more thing. If I go to the Dr. Billy's, I have one appointment for Mark this evening, and I want to actually, since this is completed, let's see which is open one, and I want to assign the same group to someone else. I can definitely do that just by, so if I say that, I say rebook group, and you will see the availabilities for the same kind of resources. So there is, this is for COVID. Let's say if I want to book this, and I say this. So rebooking is also possible, and you can book the regroup, you can rebook the whole requirement, you can assign the particular booking to some else resource. So let's say there is a booking for, you can do that. And I wanted to show you one more thing, is there is one more status. So let's substitute resource. So in this case, this patient is basically booked for a service which needs a group of resources to be booked. So this cannot be assigned. But if you have a single resource booked, let's say just the ambulance, you can assign it to someone else. So for particular single resource, since resource requirement, resource substitute function works, but not for the rebook. Rebook group works just for the groupings of the resources. Schedule assistance, as we have seen it, assist us, and it is all customizable via the views and the XML things. And I'll just show you quickly where the XML lies to update the filter layouts and everything. A schedule board is just a one single application to see everything, and it's again same as assistant, but this is more a kind of a view where you have everything. Assistant is just to assess what all resources are available. Schedule board is fully customizable via views in XML, same thing. And if I see schedule board changes, I have given here, maybe just, yeah, so I have already shown the requirement group down, how does it work? So one more thing here is, if I go here, you see this part, this is again customizable, just where the views as I've shown you just now. This is what I've done here. If you don't want anything related to field service, product service, if it's already there, you can just remove it by just removing the views. And next one, there are a couple of views which mainly comes into the picture. So bookable resource entity views, org units entity views, resource requirement entity views. So everything is data configure driven here. And next one, if I see that, so before I jump to the different versions, how they comes, I'll just show you quickly one more thing here before I jump to the version part, how the XML is customized. So for example, you see the filter layout. And filter layout definitely is coming as part of XML, not any view. So if I say schedule types, let's say for my entity, I'm using here retrieve constraint query, retrieve resources query. So if I click on this, I have this XML, and this XML is customizable to put particular fields, to default the values and everything. So there are a couple of XMLs which can be customized as well. You can customize from the journal setting, the colors and everything. And as I showed the bookings color when I was changing the status, how they work, just simply the data configuration again here. So if I go and jump to show you quickly booking status, yeah. So I have a couple of status which has different colors when I change. So let's see, cancel. It's just selecting the color here, shows the changes on the schedule board. That's all. This is quite interesting. Just doing some data configuration, everything works. So if you go to the common, you have the color and you have ability to choose the colors. This is how the coloring works. So I quickly, if I jump to the PowerPoint presentation, so as I have covered about the scenario which I have taken about hospital, different resources, how the booking works for out of the box entity service activity, how it works for custom entity, how to enable the scheduling for particular entity, how the booking setup metadata works, and how the bookings, resource requirement entities all are related to each other. I have covered it via demo, and this one is about URS version. So I have noticed quite a time when you suppose install just the customer service app, you might get a different version of URS. And if you have the field service, you might get a different version of URS. So this is, as Microsoft told that they are working on it, and maybe later going on, it's going to be the same version coming up with all kind of first party apps. So this is one thing which I wanted to cover. And next one, there are a couple of bugs in the URS. There are a couple of things which doesn't work, but they are supposed to work in the next release. So one is the least busy. For example, I have around 100 resources. Some works just 2 hours a day, some works, let's say 12 hours a day. So obviously one person who works more is the least busier than the other person. So this functionality, it doesn't work, but this is possible. How to enable this, I just will show you quickly. So if you see the service, for example, for blood test appointment, I want to show the least busy resources, and I have here the compounder. And in the compounder here, I can select this. If you see none, I have an option as show the least busy doctors, or the most busy, or the randomized, depending on the need. But this one doesn't work at the moment. So this is still with Microsoft, and they're going to fix it and will be available in the next release. Next one, custom booking statuses, which doesn't work with the requirement groups, but definitely works with the individual requirements. No option to book SA via drag drop to schedule board. So you need to select, find availability, and see the available resources, and then click on book. There is no facility to drag from the down where the open requirements are available and just book it. It's not quite possible right now. So this is about what we discussed, and I know I talked a lot, and I hope my session was interesting and it's more clear how to use URS. You can use definitely in many scenarios, many businesses who are already utilizing the apps. So it comes free and it can be implemented with just few data configuration. It's not coding, no coding, nothing. And even not using the custom entity, you can utilize the out of the box entity. So by not doing any customization, just data configuration, it works. it works, and the scheduling works for multiple resources, different category, different characteristics. Thank you so much, DynamicsCon, for giving me this opportunity. I really enjoyed it and hope everyone liked the session. Thank you so much.